Hey everybody, welcome back to Big TV. And today I am joined by Greg from Revolution Recap ahead of our game this weekend against New England Revolution. I want to get a sense of what we're going to expect from New England Revolution and also get a sense of how their offseason has been and what we're going to be looking like come this Saturday. So Greg, how you doing? How are you feeling ahead of this game?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm really excited for MLS to be back for New England. It's a new era with the new coach. Certainly, the Caleb Porter era did not treat us well, so it's a new beginning. It's a lot of excitement, and we'll get into the team a little bit too. But I think there's a lot of optimism, even though I think a lot of people don't expect a lot of noise from the Revolution this year. So bit mixed feelings, but either way, we're all excited. MLS is coming back.
Amazing. I think that's the sense here as well. We obviously got our little taster on Tuesday night where we got our
Mhm.
little CONCACAF Champions Cup win in. So we've had a little bit more of a sign of what's to come in terms of what we can expect from BJ this year and so on. But from based on preseason, in terms of your match fitness, how you're looking, how is that right now? And kind of philosophies that Marko Mitrovic has brought into the team. Have you got any idea of that right now?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the teams rolled over from last season, and the roster didn't really change too much. But what we're hearing out of preseason is that he's going to be running a 4-3-3. It's interesting because they're kind of short on wingers. The top four, there's four players that are going to take three spots up top. Griffin Yao and Luca Langoni are likely the wingers, and then they have Dor Turgeman, an Israeli striker who came in at the end of last year, and Leo Campana, former Inter Miami striker. So the four of them in some way are going to slot up top, but beyond that, there's not a lot of depth. So they're going to rely, it sounds like, on a lot of wing play. But the other thing we're hearing out of preseason is that it's very fluid, a lot of rotating players, a lot of movement. Whereas previously with Caleb Porter, I think players were a little more rigid, a little stuck to certain areas, and it just
Absolutely.
didn't flow very well. So one thing that the Revolution had issues with last year was progressing the ball, progressive passes. Outside of Carlos Hill, no one really did that.
Mm.
And with the roster too, there is a question. American Soccer Analysis had a very good article on it, and they said there's still no one that can really progress the ball or hasn't progressed the ball previously. So there's a big question on if we're going to see some improved movement and some improved passes and some progression in the attack. And Marko Mitrovic apparently wants to attack. So it'll be interesting because they seem a little limited up top. But from what we're hearing, you can expect a lot of fluid motion and some attacking soccer.
I think it's interesting because I feel a little bit the same about our situation. We've obviously reinforced and we've got some great players that have come in terms of Espinoza, of course, and our depth has increased massively. Like the players we brought in are young and exciting to watch, and players like Rubens Pasillas have come up after their loan spells and are doing a good job as a second choice striker from what he's done on Tuesday night. But it does feel the same where BJ is kind of lacking in depth a little bit in places and he wants to play the system that he wants to play,
Mhm.
perhaps more than having the right players to play that system, if that makes sense. You kind of got a little bit, we're a little bit lacking of depth in the
Yep.
midfield. We sort of have two players that are super locked down in kind of Eddie Tagseth and Yazbek.
Mhm.
And then we've got this other player because we've also switched to a 4-3-3, whereas we were playing a kind of two double pivot and then two wide and then two up top last season. We've kind of switched to a very traditional 4-3-3, almost like a flat 4-3-3.
Mhm.
And we now have two obvious players that are going to start, and then one that we're not really sure who it's ever going to be. And
Mhm.
they're definitely playing on the left side of this kind of left sided eight thing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I think this is going to be an interesting tactical battle, especially after the comments about what's the style for New England Revolution. It's attack.
Well, and it's interesting too because what we're hearing, I mean, it's a blank slate, right? So we haven't seen this yet. So what we're kind of hearing, you're kind of picturing, but you're like, it's. I'm curious to see how it plays out, and how this team looks because. Looking at the roster, I think this team is kind of offensively limited. So it'll be interesting. The other thing too is that where is Carlos Heel going to play on the field? Typically, he's been, an attacking midfielder, a central player, but he really roams around a lot. There's a lot of times he comes back and gets the ball in positions where back along the back line at some points, back along the side, basically where the wingbacks should be, and he moves the ball and then tries and gets another pass. So really, this offense and possession overall, not only just in passing the ball but retaining it, dribbling, has really centered around Carlos Heel over the past couple of years. Does his role change? Does he play a little bit further back and kind of play as more of a playmaker in the midfield? Do we see him run up and attack more? Because obviously you want him near goal as well. So it's curious to see how he's going to use Carlos Heel, and that's a question that I don't know the answer to right now.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I mean, I learned a lot just on Tuesday night watching our first Champions Cup game. And I think
Mhm.
that's kind of set the blueprint for what we're likely to do.
Mhm.
But we're going to see a little bit more once we've got this first team involved. Because,
Mm.
I mean, even that lineup is sort of up in the air. I've kind of done my detective work. I did my detective work got a nailed on lineup for the Tuesday night game. And I think our first team lineup is going to be our last lineup from our Florida preseason,
Mhm.
but it's still a little bit unpredictable. So, I mean, in terms of, I mean, it's Carl's Hill, you've mentioned a lot there, but how else might this midfield be looking? Is that kind of where this game is going to be won and lost for you? Or do you feel like, I mean, the way it's been spoken about, it sounds like you're going to be trying to be on the front foot possession and control possession. And that's kind of what Nashville want to do too. Is that what your take is on this so far?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, and part of that might depend on what lineup Nashville fields. Historically in Champions Cup, teams that play in Champions Cup, when they play against non-Champions Cup teams, there's an advantage for the teams that are sitting out. So I think the Revs are getting kind of lucky here with this draw that, we might not see, 90 minutes of 3 designated players and very good designated players at that. So I think if we see a full strength lineup, I think you might see the team retract, try to hit on the counterattack. And I mean, that's how I would play it. Again, Marko Mitrovic has never been a head coach before, so we're really blind here.
Yeah.
It's really hard to predict, and again, like the narratives kind of don't match what I personally would do. I would
Yeah.
absorb some pressure, play defensively, and then try to hit on the counterattack. Abdur Turgeman is really good in space as well. So what I would do is I would play Yao on the left, Langoni on the right, and Dur Turgeman up top. And really try to hit on the counterattack because you have some decent speed there and you can run there. And I think that is essentially the way to approach this game. If it is a weaker lineup, you might see a little bit more possession based, a little bit more of the Revs trying to go forward and attacking. But again, there's a lot of unknowns with this one. So, but in terms of, you mentioned the midfield, that is one area that I think the Revolution do have a lot of depth in. Alassane Youssef is a very good midfielder that covers a ton of ground. He's not going to show up on the score sheet too much. But he does a very, very good job with possession box to box. The Revs also acquired Brooklyn Raines of the Houston Dynamo last year. He was someone that played under Marko Mitrovic in the U20 World Cup. And apparently that when Marko Mitrovic was interviewing for the Revolution job, he reached out to Brooklyn Raines and asked him if he would want to come to New England if he took the job. So even before he had the job, there was talk of that acquisition happening. And then they also have Matt Polster and then a really promising young player named Alan Oyerwath, who's from Uganda and has the potential to play on the Uganda national team. A lot of people overseas were trying to recruit him, and the Revolution won his services last year. So mostly a Revs 2 player last year, but a lot of people think he's going to take a step up. So I think we'll see Alassane Youssef and Brooklyn Raines in this game, but there are a couple of good pieces in Polster, Oyerwath. They also have Jackson Ewell still around. So there's some depth, and you might see some rotation in the midfield as well.
I'm excited for this. I'm excited just for the fact that it's so different and it's so fresh and it's so unpredictable and that we don't really know. I think I know how we are going to play based on what I've seen and, all the little snippet, like little photos from preseason. I'm sitting there analyzing and drawing lines and working out where everyone's playing and what's going to be going on. But I do think if you guys are willing to play on the counter potentially, as much as that's maybe not full attack, I think you guys could find some joy because we are playing a super high line.
Mhm.
I mean, we've got kind of our centre backs playing in almost the final third of the field at times, just on that Champions Cup, what we saw with the second team. And I'm assuming that really we've been pushing this same agenda for this is how we're going to play this year. And our keepers are very high up as well. So there could be a moment in this game. I'm hoping there's not. I'm hoping that you guys really do come and just try and attack and play possession-based football and we play it better than you. But if you guys do sit and you do counter, I feel like this could be a little bit of a tougher game for us. In terms of signings, I feel like you've brought in some younger guys, right? But a lot of the rosters, a lot of the same. Like, is there anyone that you're particularly excited for? Is there a certain player that you feel might make a big difference in this game out of your roster?
Yeah, so Brooklyn Raines, who we mentioned, I think Griffin Yao is the other big signing that they made from Westerlo over in Belgium. The Revs got him for, I think, $400K, but really it's a bigger signing than that. He had 6 months left on his contract, and a lot of teams were going for him, including DC United last summer. So Griffin Yao, I think we're going to expect a big contribution from him on the left wing. He's replacing Thomas Shankali, who was a designated player who we traded to Minnesota. He just did not work out with the Revolution. And then also there's a French player, Ignatius Ganago, who was on loan. So those two had pretty decent, okay-ish production, not on a designated player level, but those two players are essentially being replaced by Griffin Yao individually. So we can expect him to make a big contribution this year, at least hopefully. And then outside of that, Ethan Kohler is a right back / center back who the Revolution acquired. They signed an academy kid, Cristiano Oliveira, who maybe we see off the bench, but he's very young. I wouldn't expect him to have a big impact in this game. And they signed a backup goalkeeper, JD Gunn. But outside of Gunn and Oliveira, Reigns, and Griffin Yao, all three of them have experience playing under Marko Mitrovic with the United States youth teams. So these are all three guys that Marco has a lot of faith in, kind of his guys that we can kind of expect them to play some sort of role going forward. I don't know about game one, especially for Ethan Kohler, but expect to see Yao and Reigns have a pretty decent footprint on this game.
I feel like this is the kind of game where you could see it start one way,
Mhm.
and it's going to be a kind of battle of the tactical minds in a way
Mhm.
that almost we're both kind of betting in new systems, and you
Yeah.
don't know what's going to happen really.
Yeah.
I feel like BJ is going to be digging into a lot of under 20 World Cup and getting an idea of what he's done in the past to try and work this one out.
I think a lot of this depends on what the lineup we see is. I mean, I think if you guys come out with your first team starter, I could absolutely see the Revs trying to slow the game down, bunker a little bit, hit on the counter, like you said, try to take advantage of the space behind that high line. But if you add some rotation and bring your designated players off the bench, I think the Revs try to go for it a little bit earlier, kind of expecting, some more firepower at the end of the game. I think the Revolution are going to be looking for their spots depending on when there's that rotation in the national lineups. But it's very interesting. I mean, as you said, there's a lot of question marks for both of these teams. I'm really, really interested to see how Marco plays this. And it being his first game too, does he institute his style? Does he institute his philosophies? Or does he play it more so based on the personnel? I'm very, very curious to see the decisions on the Revolution side.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the feeling of fans around him, is he kind of getting that backing? Is everyone excited for this, or is it a little bit of skepticism?
There's a mild amount of skepticism just because it's someone getting their feet wet. With that said, I think anyone who came in after Caleb Porter is going to be welcomed with open arms. The Caleb Porter era was about as big of a disaster as you can get. And I don't want to rag on the guy. He's won 2 MLS Cups. There's got to be a good coach in there somewhere, but I mean, an unbelievably incompetent job done by Caleb Porter that not only were the results not there, but I mean, horrible in media, some horrible quotes that came out that, at points he insulted media, he insulted refs, he insulted fans, just a lot of things that made him really unliked. So Marco has kind of come in and everyone's talked about, what a great guy he is, how pleasant he is. Even though he doesn't have that experience, I think a lot of people have a little hesitancy around that. He does have experience with Chicago Fire as an assistant coach. He has a decent amount of success too at the international level. And players have been singing his praises. So personality wise, he's complete opposite of Caleb Porter so far. He seems to be saying the correct things. But I think initially when the hiring was made, it really came out of nowhere. It was a name we hadn't heard. There were some other names linked to the job. Josh Wolf, Peter Vermees was linked to the job. So some name, Jim Curtin, we apparently were interested in. He turned down the Revs. So kind of the names you kind of heard throughout MLS, we were kind of expecting a name of someone that was an assistant or a former head coach in MLS. And this kind of came off the radar. So I think a lot of people didn't really know what to do with it. But at the very least, Marko Mitrovic seems like a decent person, a likable personality, and it seems like they are focused on building youth. You kind of mentioned earlier, their signings all seem to be younger players that are also Americans, so they're not using international roster spots. And it just seems like this is a new page and a different philosophy that I think a lot of people, even though we're not expecting an MLS Cup, it all seems pretty sensible, and I think a lot of the fan base is on board with it, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay, we're gonna suggest something here. What does that look like if, say, he loses significantly this weekend? How does
Yeah.
that feeling remain? Is there a sense that we're happy to just bet in the philosophy this year, and it's okay if we're not expecting playoffs, we're not expecting too much? Or is there a sense of if he doesn't do anything and this roster hasn't changed significantly and he's brought in his guys, say the next 3 or 4 games you're not getting anything, you're not getting results, how does that start to look? How does that feel?
Well, the other thing lurking in the background that you need to know about the Revolution is that, the Revolution changed their coach. They did not change their general manager, Kurt Anolfo, who has been the general manager since the end of 2023. So he was named general manager before Caleb Porter was named head coach. And the other thing you need to know about Kurt Anolfo is that previously, before the Revolution, he had worked a lot with Bruce Arena. He was brought in when Bruce Arena took over the New England Revolution. When Bruce Arena had his ugly split with the Revs, there was kind of a Team Bruce kind of element to the fan base. And a lot of people that stayed behind, Kurt Anolfo included, a lot of the fan base felt negatively about, because there's kind of the narrative of, we've kept in the people in place, but we just don't have Bruce, so we'll be able to duplicate this. They kept a lot of the roster when Bruce left and Caleb Porter came in, and they said, we've replaced Bruce with Caleb Porter. A lot of the staff remained the same, and the results have been terrible. So a lot of angst is directed towards Kurt Anolfo, one, because of the association with Bruce Arena leaving and the fact that they haven't been able to duplicate the results that when Bruce was here. And two, the fact that the past 2 years have been terrible. His tenure as GM, the results have been bad. We actually had the club president, Brian Bolello, on our show last week, and we asked him, why retain Kurt Onalfo but make a change at coach? And he said that we felt that the moves have been fine. We felt we're just not getting enough out of the roster. So he basically pinned it on coaching. But getting back to your question, this is a long way to say, going back to your question, if the results aren't there, the nice thing for Marko Mitrovic is that the first person I think the fans will blame is Kurt Onalfo for building the roster. I don't think Marko Mitrovic will get too much heat because there hasn't been a lot of change. This is a team that Kurt Onalfo has built. It's a team that Kurt Onalfo really rechanged. Onalfo and Porter basically stripped the entire team, brought in, 10, 15 new players last offseason and signed them to multi-year deals, which kind of limited them this offseason. So I think the first person to be blamed among the fan base is going to be Kurt Onalfo. Will that mean a change? I'm not so sure about that. But I think Marco has a lot of rope here to burn if the results are not good coming out of the gate. Now, if we're here, if I'm talking to you at the end of the season and the Revs are in last place and we're struggling to beat DC United and, we're wooden spoon contenders, then I think you might see Marko Mitrovic. Some people say that he might not be cut out for the job, but I think the first few months, at least until we get to the World Cup, the results can be terrible. And I think a lot of people are going to be willing to give Marko Mitrovic time because the thought amongst the fans will be he's kind of handcuffed by Kurt Onalfo.
It's really interesting, actually. I think there are some parallels here between maybe the Nashville of a couple of years ago resetting. I mean, we're fortunate with our general manager, Mike Jacobs. I think he genuinely does love this club and he does want, I've sat at member days and things and heard him speak, and he genuinely does feel like he cares and he wants this to be something in the next couple of years. And it does make a massive difference with what that GM can do. And then paired with a great coach, suddenly you're into something great. But I think there is some sort of parallels of you being maybe a couple of years behind where we were, GM accepted. But, it'll be interesting to see in terms of that philosophy and how it grows and how the team grows. I'm kind of excited for you guys and see what happens. Going back to the game itself, I'm going to do some quick fire questions and then we'll kind of see what comes back. So yeah, pretty much straight answer as soon as possible. And we're going to do this. So first team to score.
Ooh. Oh boy. I'm going to go with Nashville. I think Nashville is probably the better team. They're at home. Maybe the Revs come out and get a counterattacking goal, but even if we go out on the front foot and if we really push up, I could also see us being exploited pretty well. Our defense, leaked a lot of goals last year, and we didn't make too many improvements back there. So Matt Turner's a great shot stopper. I have a lot of faith in Matt Turner. And personally, I think this is going to be on the lower scoring side of the game, but I think we'll see Nashville score first. And I'm going to predict it's going to be early in the second half.
Okay, cool. Most likely to get a yellow card.
I'll go with Mamadou Fofana. Times was a little not disciplined last year, but he's one of our center backs along with Brian Ceballos. We brought them in last year. A decent center back pairing. I think Fofana is probably, if we're expecting a lot of action down on the New England Revolution side, I'll give that one to Mamadou Fofana.
Yeah, 3 DPs to keep in check. I think there might be a little bit more physicality going on than we expect.
They will have their hands busy for sure. And Fofana, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the way we're playing as well, he's going to get dragged around a little bit. I can tell you that for now. One player you're nervous about from the Nashville SC side.
Ooh, that's a really good one. I don't want to take the Henny Mukhtar angle.
You can do it. You can do it.
I mean,
you don't have to stay outside that.
I mean, every time you play Nashville, I feel like I'm a little worried about Henny Mukhtar. Sam Surridge, I feel like scored a brace against us either last year or the year before. I feel like he does very well, especially in the air. We're a little bit better at defending headers, but it seems like the Revolution always have difficulty defending headers. So yeah, I'll go Henny Mukhtar just because he's always a handful when you play, and he's like, similar to Carlos Heel. He's just the guy you got to zoom in on. But I'll give Surridge the first goal. I'll go with that.
Okay, well, that was it. The next question was first goal scorer, so sorry. Yeah, I mean, he's got that. Don't forget, he's got now a wand of a right foot delivering him crosses as well. So where we went from last season of kind of how do we get a cross into Sam, probably Andy Nahar. Now we've got 2 of them on that right-hand side that can do it. So it's looking dangerous. And then finally, your score prediction.
I'm going to go, last year, I'm tempted to go 0-0. But I know that's how we started last year, and I don't think that's going to happen 2 years in a row. So I'll go 1-1. I think the Revolution will hit a decent counter-attacking goal at some stage. Maybe when if Nashville scores first, they push up and play a little bit more offensively and we find a goal somewhere. But yeah, I actually like the fact that Nashville has played once this week. Hopefully that means there's a little bit more tired legs. It's technically a travel week for you guys as well. So of the times to go visit you guys in Nashville, this is one of the better weeks. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I like the odds for a draw here. But I think if you look at expected goals, if you look at chances created, I think Nashville is going to take those categories. And I think this is going to be a game that if we get a draw, we're going to be, wiping the sweat off our brow, and you guys will be grinding your teeth a little bit.
Yeah, I always think it's a little insightful when the opposition fan gives the draw because you know that they think, I'm not going to give my team losing. I'm not going to say these guys are going to lose. So I'm going to give a draw because I think we might lose, but I'm going to do that. I get it.
I would give you guys a 3-1 win if you didn't play in the Champions Cup this week. But
Okay.
I'm a big believer in Champions Cup teams versus non-Champion Cup teams. I'm a big believer in that. And I think every time we get to May and I look at the standings, there's always a really good team that's kind of in the middle of the pack that seems to be underachieving. And it's like, oh, they're dealing with Champions Cup.
Okay. I mean, do you know what? I would agree typically. Like, I think there's a lot more to contend with, especially when you're not used to playing those extra games, particularly. But I genuinely think the depth and the lineup that we played, we don't actually have to play any of the players that we played on Tuesday night on Saturday. It's a whole fresh lineup. And
Mm,
I think that's what makes us so dangerous is that throughout preseason, my detective work for the last game, I went through and looked at all the preseason rosters and who started and who we played the final first half team in Florida on Tuesday night. So the
mm,
Lexington game we lost in our last game of preseason, but I think it was literally just a run out of a mismatch of players, just get more time in the legs. And I think you're going to see the full three start of Espinoza, Hani Mukhtar, and Sam Surridge. We're playing with Hani as a false nine, and Sam Surridge and Espinoza basically push up as a two. And we're gonna have the whole. Yeah, I feel like we might be quite dangerous. I think talking to you actually is giving me a little bit more confidence because this is going to be our full team. This is going to be the whole thing. But whether they gel, how they play, how it all comes together, you never know, and how the pressure is going to work, we don't know. Are
mm.
there any kind of major concerns that you have? I've got some major concerns from you guys that I'm worried about. One of them being that counter, the other being Carl's Hill. Obviously, he's dangerous. And I do think that this new style is so unpredictable that we could just get blindsided by the way that you're going to play. I feel like that is genuinely a massive threat. But is there kind of a major worry for you in terms of the way we might play or who might be able to do something other than Hani, obviously?
Yeah, I have a lot of well, one thing is the depth. I mean, I think, we've talked about, we only have so many offensive players. There's another guy, Malcolm Fry, who's come up from the academy. He basically has no first team experience, but he might be one of our subs off the bench. So I think attacking depth might be an issue. If you see a player go down, or if if something goes wrong offensively, there's really no answer. We're really writing out those top four for the whole game. So outside of that too, last year the Revolution played better when they played in a 5-man back line. We seem to be rolling out a 4-man back line, and we didn't really make any changes to the back line. We brought in Ethan Kohler, but he's probably going to be a backup. We're going to see Ilya Feingold and Peyton Miller on the wings, and then Mamadou Fofana and
Yeah.
Brian Ceballos as our center back playing. All of them are good players. None of them are elite players, though. In the cases of Feingold and Miller, they're both still very young. It'll be their second season as a full-time starter in MLS, but that defense at times leaked goals. So one thing that I could see happening, it's similar to the Nashville game at Foxborough after that summer break last year. I believe you guys scored 3 or 4 times. And that was really the red flag that was to come, which was that our defense really, really, really regressed. Now, that game we had Ilyas Ivicic, who's formed dipped down a little bit. That was pre Matt Turner acquisition. Matt Turner, as I'm sure MLS fans know and Revs fans certainly know, can keep you in games easily as long as you
Yeah.
limit chances. So my concern, though, is just, this game starts, as you've kind of talked about, you're kind of giggling over there about the attack. And if you see all 3 DPs, I mean, there's a very good chance that this defense doesn't progress from last year. We see the same kind of leaking goals here and there. I mean, it's very possible this could be 2-0 at halftime for Nashville, and the Revs just don't have the firepower, to counter it. So I think my concern here is the defense. How well does that defense hold up? If we're able to kind of hold firm, hit on the counter attack, play very well, play well in those aspects and play really solid defensively, which we should, then I'm feeling a little bit better. But there's a very, very good chance that, right away, those 3 designated players have a field day, in which case it'll be a long night for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you on that. I feel you on that. I think you obviously have those. I mean, Campania is a player that I'm a little bit worried about. He's done well in preseason, right? Isn't it 5 goals in 5 in preseason?
He scored 5 goals in 5 games. I should also add about our preseason results is that our 2 wins came against a Sarasota Paradise, an expansion USL League One team, and Hartford Athletic, a USL Championship team, although they had a very good season last year. So it's worth
Okay.
noting that our 2 wins there are against USL sides. Against MLS sides, including Montreal, we did not have a win. I believe we had one draw and two losses. So when we talk about Campana, 5 goals in 5 games, he's finding
Yeah.
but I believe 3 of those came against USL competition. So there's the little caveat. I will
Okay.
say, I will say, last year with Campana, he dealt with injuries, and clearly there was, I don't know if it was mental or a composure or what. He missed chances that were baffling, that,
Mm,
you were shocked at. And if you look at my favorite stat is shots on target percentage in his 3 seasons with Miami, he's in the mid 40s. With the Revolution, he had like 32% shots on target. So his accuracy was a major issue. So in a way, I think there might be a little bit of a bounce back where if he kind of regresses back to the norm and he's getting 40% of his shots on target, he's going to go from whatever he had last year, 7 or 8 goals, to 12 goals, right? If he's getting the ball
yeah.
on target a little bit more on frame, he's going to be a little bit more dangerous. And the fact that he's got 5 goals in 5 preseason games might tell me he's got that confidence back. The other thing with Campana, too, is that it's a World Cup year. He's trying to make the Ecuadorian team. I think there is a lot of motivation. So if motivation was a factor last year, it's certainly not going to be this year. So I think there is reason to expect a Campana bounce back, but
Mm,
time will tell, because what we saw last year didn't inspire a ton of confidence.
yeah, I get you. I think with strikers though, it's always just getting any goals is
Yeah,
it's gonna set
exactly.
you on the right path, right? I was so excited on Tuesday night that Rubens Pasillas got a goal just because it's his first time in the team. It was his debut. He's been around the club for years, but been out on loan so many times to actually come in, get a goal. That for a striker, it doesn't really matter who you score
Yeah,
against. It's just that it actually went in.
yeah,
And yeah, I feel like he's someone that yeah, low level. I mean, obviously you've
yep,
kind of unveiled a bit more behind that stat, the kind of
yep,
5 in 5 stat, but
yep.
I feel like there's still something there to be.
It's still 2 in 3 games against MLS competition. So, he's still scoring. And the Revolution comp I'll make is Adam Buxa, who came in during the 2020 season and hit the post a lot, was near miss left and right. And a lot of fans weren't sold on him. Then the 2021 season comes down, and I don't know if he changed his mentality or technical ability or whatever, but those shots started going on frame. And, a year and a half later, he sold for $10 million to France. So, and he's playing for
Yeah.
Poland in the World Cup. So, we might see a similar turnaround with Campana where, one or two things bounce his way. He's enjoying soccer again. He's playing well. Things click. As I say, if that 30% goes up to 40% shots on target, we might see a pretty solid bounce back. So I think you're putting it in a very good way. Low key worried is a good way to frame it. Certainly not a guy that I would be stand out. Oh, this is the guy we need to really shut down. But I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up with a goal.
No, and he is facing a new defensive partnership.
Yeah.
Walezi and Palacios have not played together. I mean, obviously they have in preseason. Had some good games. Actually, I think we've at least drawn or won almost all of our MLS opposition in preseason. But there is, a player to get out there and his MLS debut in a new country against a player who has been in the league for a while and knows the league.
Mhm.
He can probably get at Walezi in that way potentially. He's looked, I think, good, but you never really know. So I mean, yeah, that would be my worry. Him and Hill combining, and also just not knowing what could happen with this team, how they're going to play, the unpredictability of it. I think is the other thing that I'm just a little bit on edge out about for this
I
national
think
team.
I think also too you got to worry about Dor Turgeman. He has 3 goals in 3 games. A lot of people in the Revolution camp are really excited about him. Now, what's curious is that his best position is striker. Playing in a 4-3-3, if you play Campana up top, you have to move into the wing. So a lot of people are wondering, how does that fit? Does Campana sit, or and does Turgeman start? Because Turgeman's going to start somewhere. So there's a lot of question marks about who exactly is lining up in that top 3. Maybe we see Turgeman in left wing, and Yao comes in later. Angoni is really disappointed. So, maybe Yao plays on the right and Turgeman plays on the left. We don't really know how that top 3 is lining up. But if Turgeman is up top and you're concerned about the counter, that is also the guy you're going to have to worry about, because if you get him into open space, he's probably going to get a shot off, and very small sample size, but he really impressed in his time with the Revs last year.
Yeah, I mean, especially if he is going to play out wide, neither of our fullbacks are particularly pacey. Reed Baker Whiting, we've just brought in, is decent pacey, but he's not played yet. He's not had, obviously, preseason.
Yeah.
So he's got some speed, but he's also not terribly great defensively. I think
Mm.
in terms of our fullbacks, we don't actually have a ton of pace other than Jordan Knight, and he played on Tuesday night. So I do not expect him to start. I
Mm.
also don't expect him to be able to handle that right now, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
He looked good in the Villa game in the middle of last preseason, but they were not anywhere near match fit. I'm so shocked to see that Villa team now nearly at the top of the Premier League. So, it's amazing what happens between preseason and actual, getting back to a season. But yeah, so I think you've given your score prediction with a 1-1. I think I'm gonna give mine as a 3-1. I don't
Yep.
think we're gonna be able to keep that clean sheet. I do think we struggle to see out games, and I do think if you guys can get us to a 1-0 or a 2-1, I still think we struggle to see out games. So you could easily, if we're 2-1 up, we need a cushion. We need that extra goal because I don't think we can hold a 2-1 out. I think we're gonna end up with a 2-2. And that was the story of last season. I was shocked to go back through our data and just look at how many, I mean, even just the basic, how many games we lost or how many games we drew was so much higher than I expected, simply because I spent 85 minutes of most games being like, yeah, we're winning. And then you realize, yeah, that one ended up as a draw and that one ended up as a 2-1 loss to Miami. And so I do think you guys, if you can get a goal and put us under a bit of pressure, I think we could see a draw. But I'm believing that our DPs are going to get a little bit more up and have a bit more.
Well, I know that we're focusing on the Revs, but I have to ask too, like, how much of that concern is amplified by losing Walker Zimmerman? Because, I mean, just on the outside looking in, it seemed like that was the centerpiece of your defense. I mean, removing that, I feel like that is, probably going to lower your confidence in the defense as well. You mentioned the center back pairing that is new this year, but I mean, what's the panic level in Nashville over Walker Zimmerman leaving? Is there a lot, or do you feel like they've competently replaced him?
I feel like I actually don't think there's a lot. I think it's emotional. There's a lot of
Mhm,
an emotional Walker was here, he's always been here, like first goal in MLS history and all that sort of stuff.
mhm,
I feel like he under the BJ Callahan regime wasn't the right player, but he was good to come and see a game out. He spent a
mhm,
lot of last season injured. He didn't then get into the team often. He was kind of in and out. Palacios came in and did a great job on that right side of centre back. Mayer looked good against with him on the left hand side of him. Well, Edzie's supposed to be an upgrade on both of those players coming in from Norway. So I don't think there's too much concern in that way. But I do think having a player that can come off the bench and see the game out is a bit of an issue for Nashville. Brian Acosta does that to some extent, but he played all of Tuesday night and we took him off in the last couple of minutes. And at that point, the game starts to open up and Ottawa get 3 or 4 chances. And one of them is cleared off the line by Josh Bauer at left back. So I do think we struggle with that game experience to see a game out. We don't have that very experienced DP at the back or someone that's willing to drop in and make something happen in that way. And I
mhm,
do think there were times when we brought Zimmerman on last year in a 5 just to see it out. And he
mhm,
looks great in that role, just
mhm,
smashing it away, winning.
mhm.
He doesn't lose a header. He never
Yeah.
loses a header pretty much. And I mean, even in the US game I watched here, he looked pretty terrible in a 4 and looked amazing in a 5.
Mhm,
So they were playing Switzerland. He drops into the center of a 5. Looks amazing. Just gets
mhm,
gets rid of the ball. He just dominates that central attacking,
mhm,
aggressive central defensive position. I'm not sure we have that. I'm not sure we have that in that way, but I think we've been built to be great in possession, a nice ball playing pair of centre backs that are happy to move the ball around. And I don't think Zimmerman really offered that. So
mhm.
I'd say it's not too much of a concern, but it is being able to see out a game is just a Nashville thing right now. And we just struggle, and we've struggled since last season. And watching it on Tuesday night, it gives me flashbacks. We could
Mhm.
have so many points that I think last year, if you kind of accumulated the ones that we let slip to draws, we could have easily been in third.
Interesting. Well, I'm curious to see how it plays out too, because as I say, I think if the Revs can keep it close, I think they're going to be dangerous in the final few minutes and might be able to find an equalizer. So, we agree on that point, but it really comes down to I think how quickly Nashville can kind of break in, or if the Revs really kind of surprise me and what we hear about Marko Mitrovic is true, and that they go out on the attack and maybe we have a 4-3 track meet. I wouldn't approach it that way. I think the Revs really need to shorten the game and really attack kind of towards the end and really kind of hold the line, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this Nashville side believes that they're destined for a bit more.
Mhm.
I think if you can make them rethink that a little bit early on or late in the game with a goal, I think you might see us panic a little bit because I
Yeah.
do think we have that attitude of, yeah, we've built something here and we took our roster that was kind of good and we just added to it. We
Yeah.
cleared out some players that weren't really contributing or who were mostly injured and took a step forward. And I think if this team doesn't take that step forward in this game, I think it could mean a lot for the momentum for the rest of the season. I mean, how does that feature for you guys in terms of the rest of the season? What does a win here look like, or is it not significant? It's just a case of betting things in.
A win would be phenomenal because I think you kind of said it here, like you guys are going next level and we're kind of still on the basement floor. I think it's kind of opposite because I don't remember exactly the preseason expectations for Nashville, but I believe you exceeded them. If I remember correctly, the Revs Nashville opener of last year was a little more even Um, Admittedly, the Revs, I think, were expecting to kind of be more competitive for playoffs. I think we were both kind of expecting to be kind of in the middle of the pack, and you guys
Yeah.
went one way and we went the other. So it's kind of the opposite of last year, where 0-0 draw happens. That's probably fair. You're kind of feeling each other out, and yeah, that seems about right. This year, I think if the Revs take a draw, we're happy with it on the road. Positive start to the Marco Mitrovic era. If we're getting a win, boy, that's incredible. I mean, there wasn't too much changes, too many changes. Marco comes in and really just right away gets a result against a team that really is superior. I think that would be a phenomenal result. Truth be told, I think every Revs fan would take a draw right now, just because the Apple TV predictions came out. I think our highest prediction was 7th. The average prediction was 12th. We had 2 or 3 people pick us 15th, which like DC United, come on, like the floor for us should be 14th, but
Yeah.
the fact that we have some 15ths in there kind of tells you a lot. So yeah, a result here, a win or a draw, I think is a great result. Part of that, if it's a draw, I think a lot depends on what it looks like. If it's one-way traffic and Matt Turner stands on his head and you guys get a goal and we get a cheap penalty and draw it, I think a lot of people are going to have some concerns about how this team looks. But if we can hold our own and play solid defensively, I think that's what a lot of people are looking to see.
Yeah, I feel like for you guys, this is really a free hit. And I think Nashville are
Yes.
going to be shocked by the level that we've kind of been stepped up to in the eyes of a lot of other fans. I talked to a
I
lot of
agree.
other fans and they've all sort of gone. I mean, even the Seattle guys I was talking to yesterday about the Reed signing were saying, oh, we're really glad that we're not in your conference because we'd actually consider you as quite a
Yeah.
scalp now. And I think that's the thing that this Nashville team's going to have to get used to is the idea that last season, I think we were underdogs who probably overproduced. And this season, we've now got to kind of be regarded as you guys could do something good and you got to switch
Yeah.
that mentality to feel
Yeah.
that, yeah, we are good. We've got to be good and we've got to deliver it and can be consistent. If we don't
Yeah.
do that in this first game, I think it could really start to derail that mentality.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. And I think BJ has been with you guys since mid 2024.
Yeah. Yeah. So he
So
was
yeah,
eight.
you're
Yeah.
year 3. This is kind of the era where he's been there long enough that he's got his stamp on the team, and you're adding Christian Espinoza. I mean, oh my goodness, what a gift from the gods for him to fall into your
Yeah.
lap. I mean, that offense is really incredible, and you guys held your own against Miami too last year. I mean, I think if you look at the top teams in the East, or kind of the teams that can run at the front of the pack, I don't think many teams can keep up with Miami, but you guys are in that discussion as well. I think your offense is phenomenal. It's going to be really, really interesting to see where you guys end up. And I think you're right. If you come out of this game and you get, even if you guys win 1-0, I mean, I'll ask you, if you win 1-0 and you guys look a little sluggish, are you sweating a little bit? I mean, because we're one of the teams that the top teams should be beaten up on.
I mean, a one, yeah, 1-0, 1-0. I'm very happy. It's
Okay.
the first game of the season.
3
It's
points. You just want the 3 points.
yeah, those kind of teams that win. I'd rather this team became a mentality monster and understood that the win is the most important thing
Mhm.
than worry about how we won in the first game of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, we missed one preseason game due to the snowstorm we had down here. We're still gaining some match fitness right now. I don't think we're 100% fit. I think we're probably about 85, 90% fit. And if we can get a win, that's all that matters. We just need to start putting out our stall and saying, hey, yeah, we can actually compete. And teams that are expected to be a little bit lower than us get the win. Like that's it. Like the minimum required is just get the win against teams that are below you. And the second thing required is that you really need to be fighting to the death against those teams that are, your Cincinnati's, your Miami's, those kind of teams. You need to be really competing with them. And I expect away wins as well this season. I know that there's kind of this MLS discussion of, well, it's an away game. And I think that's died out over the last couple of seasons. People don't say that quite so much, but there's definitely the kind of, well, they're away and maybe, it's tougher. At least you get a draw. I think if we want to be that team, we need to be, it's a win or nothing against anyone that's sort of 5th below.
Interesting. Being from New England, our travel is, pretty brutal. I calculate the travel. I feel like we can win games we've won like one game at Red Bull Arena. And I'm like, that shouldn't be too tough of a road game. I understand if you got to fly to San Jose or LA or Vancouver, I can get how kind of the legs might be a little tired and you got to adjust. But like, man, like New York's 3 hours away. We should be able to take a game every now and then for Red Bull Arena. But for whatever reason, they have our number there. It's crazy.
I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate this discussion. I really enjoy it. Like I said, I'm going to go with the 3-1. You've gone with the 1-1. And let's see. I'm excited to see this game. I'm excited to see these two managers with different philosophies, both, of course, coach different US teams at points. Where can people find you, Greg? Where can they go and consume your content and what you do?
Yeah, so you can follow us. We do a podcast after every game, Revolution Recap. We also typically do a midweek a preview podcast with a Apple TV guest or some sort of expert around the Revolution. But you can follow us at any podcast platform. You can also follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky at Revolution Recap, and there's also a Revolution Recap Instagram page. Those are going to be the areas we're going to be the most active. If you want to follow our inactive Revolution Recap Facebook page, just to be ironic because no one uses Facebook anymore, you can do that too. But Tyler, I had a phenomenal, kind of great conversation. I wish I had more answers. It's the season opener. Hopefully, the next time we do this, I'll have a little bit more clarity of what we can expect from Marco and the Revolution lineup. But I will also, I just want to throw out one more thing. I am still mad. I'm still mad that the Revolution took Edward Kizza over Josh Bauer in the 2021 Super Draft. We needed a center back, UNH grad. Everyone in the Revolution wanted Josh Bauer, and Edward Kizza has been down at USL for a few years after we released him, and Josh Bauer is still a pretty solid MLS depth piece that the Revolution certainly could use. So I just want to give a shout out to Josh, who's still hanging around in MLS, and we're glad to see it.
Yeah, I actually don't know how he's going to feature right now. We've added so much depth at the back that I feel like he may be available at some point soon. So maybe your chance is coming. Your day is coming.
Come home, Josh. Come home, Josh. We need some depth. I like Tanner Beeson, Revolution Recap guest Tanner Beeson, but we could use another center back here. So Josh, if Nashville isn't treating you right, you always got a home in New England.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Head over and check out Greg's different formats, podcasts, Instagram channels, not the Facebook, and we'll see you in the next video.